Hello.
Hello. And I want to turn on the chat screen there. Greetings and welcome to the Technomadia live stream broadcast. The date today is December 3rd, and it's 7 p.m. Yes, it's already December.
Already?
That's
oh my
crazy.
It's like just yesterday we were sitting in a parking lot in Billings, Montana.
No, that was years ago. Years ago.
Oh, goodness gracious.
Anyways, it is December 3rd, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. If you're watching this at any other time, you're watching an archive and not live, so any of the prompts to interact with us will not be valid. But if it is December 3rd and it's 7 p.m. Central Standard Time,
we're live.
We are live.
Hey, wow.
Yes.
And we are broadcasting via AT&T LTE, so we are actually seem to have a strong enough signal to do a high-quality video broadcast this time. Hopefully there's no choppiness and the picture is looking sparkling clear. If there's any technical glitches, right now is the time to let us know that you're not seeing or hearing us. Or somebody chime in and say yay in the chat just so we know that the broadcast is going through.
So if you haven't discovered it yet, if you're on Ustream on your computer, in your browser, in the upper right-hand corner is a little social box, and there's a chat link to a tab, and that's how you can interact with us. You just type into that little box there, and you will see it right here on our iPad, and we're looking good. Thank you.
Looking great and smooth.
Fantastic.
Awesome.
Love being an LTE. All right. So if you're on an iPad or mobile device, you probably won't be able to chat with us. I don't think we haven't figured that one out yet. Anyway, so also we are on a free account with Ustream. It has been the best option for us to live stream over our iPad, which is our only unlimited data source. Unfortunately, on the free account, they do occasionally intersperse ads that may block for a bit what we're talking about.
We don't control that, and we don't even know that it is happening. So we apologize in advance if it cuts off something important, but the entire stream is being recorded and will be dumped to YouTube without any interruptions afterwards.
Right. So we have no control over it. We get nothing out of it. Ustream would charge us $100 a month to turn those ads off, and well, we're not doing that.
Right.
So this is our gift. This is our gift to you. We love doing these video chats because it's fun.
Mm-hmm.
And we get to share a slice of our life that we can't otherwise.
And one more other thing that comes up is some people request, like, well, why don't you do this on other things like YouTube Live or Google Hangouts or something? We haven't found an easy way to do that straight from an iPad with nearly the same ease as with Ustream. But if anybody has any tips or tutorials on, like, here's an easy way to do X, send them our way. We'll try it out, but we haven't figured it out yet.
Right. This is working great for us. This makes it easy, and if it's easy for us, that means
easy for you.
It means we do it, and you get the content.
Right.
Anyway, so we're going to get started tonight. We actually took a poll. We didn't know over the weekend what we wanted to talk about. We just knew it was kind of time to do one of these chats. And we took a poll, and overwhelmingly the choice was how to select your routing when you're doing RVing, and how to select some scenic campgrounds. So we have an outline. If you look at the very top of the chat box, I put a link to it. If you go to technomadia.com/chat-notes-routing, I actually have an outline up in some of our resources that we'll be talking about there. So
pre-linked.
Pre-linked. So we'll try to follow the outline, but we're us. We don't follow a rule. Right. So anyway, so first one, when we're doing routing, just so if you aren't that familiar with us, we drive a 35-foot bus conversion, pulling a Mini Cooper. We did start out in a 16-foot travel trailer and
being pulled by a Jeep.
Being pulled by a Jeep.
So our possibilities have changed.
Right. And then we also did 4 years in also the Jeep or truck pulling a 17-foot fiberglass trailer. So we've had to adapt our routing strategies over the years as our changes in our RVs have.
Back when we had the Tab, in particular with the Tab and the Jeep, there really wasn't a road that we wouldn't go down.
Oh, yes, there were. The ones with big cliffs we wouldn't go down.
We went down them. Sometimes we'd have to do a U-turn and come back. But there'd be like a squiggly line on the map. It didn't matter whether it was paved or not, as long as we didn't have to ford too big of a creek. We would ford creeks even. We would say, let's go that way. And so that made routing, in some ways, very easy, sometimes very adventurous. We'd come to an intersection and say, paved road left, dirt road right. Map says they both seem to go westish. Let's go right. And
It was great. Sometimes we had fabulous experiments with just serendipitously following roads that looked fun and cool and different and ways to get across. We'd find ourselves going through people's ranches. Yeah. We'd find ourselves on private roads and have to do turnarounds.
So it was our routing was a lot different when we had a vehicle that could do that could do a U-turn in almost the same space as a car. And if it couldn't do a U-turn, it needed to do a three-point turn. Well, with the tab, you could actually get out, unhitch the trailer, and spin it around by hand and hitch up going the other direction. So it wasn't daunting to get down a road that was maybe not a through road. Things have changed.
So right, now we have a 35-foot bus pulling, flat towing a Mini Cooper. If you've not had the joy of flat towing a vehicle, it's a lot better than having a trailer, but you can't really back up without jackknifing. So it really changes, well, in our bus isn't a 4x4, it's a 6x something.
Actually, I mean, we know that our bus, when it was in service in the 60s and the 70s, used to carry miners up switchback little roads in Arizona. This is one of the many charters that it had. So this was considered a bus that could go a lot of places, but it is not a Jeep.
Right. So we have changed the way we do our routing, but we still don't like depending only on interstates. Interstates are great if we just need to make miles, if you just don't want to have to think about routing and do you need to catch this turnoff and this little county road or something like that. But back roads are so much more fun. They have less traffic.
Usually.
Sometimes,
yes.
Sometimes they go through little cities. And
sometimes back roads turn into stop and go roads, which you got to be careful of. If you try to figure out, I'm going to avoid the interstate and take the back roads through Atlanta. No, that's a bad idea. There's no such thing as simple back roads through to get around or past Atlanta. Atlanta's like a roadblock. You might as well just push on through on the freeway and get through it.
Yeah.
We've tried.
So sometimes just taking the interstate, try to pick non-rush hour times to do it. To get through a big city is the most efficient way. But if we're going between cities, so we have on the chat notes link, I've got a picture of our routing that we took from the Phoenix area into Las Cruces just about 2 weeks ago. And if you'll notice, there's a big chunk right out of Phoenix going down into, what was the name of that city?
Superior.
Lordsburg. Lordsburg is where we connected back with I-10.
Yes.
We saved 40 miles off our trip by doing a little bit of looking ahead on the route and saying, oh, wait, Highway 60 comes out of Phoenix, and that saves us 40 miles. And so what Chris does a lot, because he loves playing with his iPad. You might want to pick it up. So iPad to iPad. By the way, this is the Retina Mini from Millenicum that we were just pimping out. I have heard they only have 90 left.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, and well, get them, because that's actually more than Apple has left. You have a 10-day wait now from Apple even. So, anyway, one thing I really like to do before doing a road that seems at all like it might be marginal is to scope it out from the satellite view. So I use Google Earth a lot of times to try and see, okay, this road goes up a twisty little canyon, but does it have shoulders, and what does it actually look like? And you could tell a lot by using Google Earth and flying over a route through the mountains to get a sense for, is this sane?
Yes, and he mentioned the shoulder thing. We have this special device installed on our bus that if the bus looks like it's in danger while we're traveling, this eep alarm goes off. It goes eep, 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 eep. That's me.
Yes.
I have found I get really, really freaked out because our bus is 8 feet wide, and if we're on a small road with no shoulders, I find I'm far more aware of where the edge of the road is and where the impending doom is, and so it's less stressful on him for me to not be eeping the whole time.
So for those people who have a passenger, a co-pilot,
we're co-pilots, not passengers.
A cargo that makes lots of noises and such, don't be resentful. Actually consider, because 99, 95, something, a very high percentage of the time, Cherie's pressing the imaginary brake and making eeping noises and other stuff, and it's like, yes, I'm already on top of that. I've already got my foot on the brake. Yes, I know where the side of the road is, but every so often, her eep is happening before I've seen something, and so I appreciate that. I consider that an early warning radar.
Can you pat me on the head?
Yes. I consider it an early warning radar. It sometimes is very, very useful. I'd much rather have a lot of eeps then I would have a lot of crunches. Eep's better than crunches, so appreciate. Go hug your co-pilot, and never make fun of them for eeping ever again. Advice for rule number 1 for the day: hug your co-pilot and tell them to eep more.
All right, so that's one thing I mentioned about shoulders. So if you have a larger motorhome and you do have a co-pilot, and the shoulders, they just give you a little more margin of error. So if you need to, if someone's passing you on the road or something like that, gives you a little more to just pull off to the side a little bit. Anyway. So
here's another one of the tools. This
might be too bright.
Bright on bright. No, this is the All Stays Campin' RV app. Which one thing they've added fairly recently is this little button here that will shows up on roads that have high grades. And you can see a little bit of information about the steep grade and what's involved there. So All Stays Campin' RV has added road grades to a lot of roads that give you notice of oh, wait, that's 4,600 foot elevation, 14-foot clearance tunnel east of Superior, many 6 to 7% grades and climbs along the route, overall descending towards Miami. Many short stretches, but they're up to 7-mile-long, 6% grade descents.
And we know
it's fabulous to know in advance.
And we know that, and I usually have my iPad, the one that we're streaming this video on, in my lap, and I'm looking at All Stays Ahead and giving him feedback on, hey, we're about to do a 7-mile grade. It's going to max 6%, and give him some feedback on it. Just to keep him aware. But we do look at that before we hit anything that looks like it might have grade, just so that we're aware and we know, and we can plan our rest stops, and if there's a rest stop in between, then,
And we know our Mini Cooper is pretty light, so it's not too much of a concern for us, but it's always an option, and we know other people who, when they come to a grade at the bottom, at the chain-up area, they unhitch their toad and they go up as a convoy just to take all that extra weight off of their RV. If you're planning ahead, if you know what kind of grade you're facing, you can make those decisions in advance, and it sure is better to be in a convoy than be on the side of the road overheated.
Right. So there's questions on there. What was the name of the app again? That was the All Stays Campin' RV edition. I think it usually sells for $9.99 in both the iTunes and Android Marketplace. They also have a website, and I believe they have a subscription that you can get for web-based if you're not tablet-enabled. And if you go to the chat notes and you look down at our essential RVing apps, it is linked off of there. And if you buy it off of that one, we actually will get a little bit of an affiliate link, and that helps. That helps feed Kiki, and Kiki likes food, so thank you. Yes. So besides using you Google Earth satellite thingy, and we use the All Stays app to look at the routing. Our navigation that we do, we've found that we really like both. We use iPads and iPhones. We're Apple nomads. We've drank the Kool-Aid a long time ago. But we found we really do like the Apple Maps and also the Google Maps. So we usually will be running both concurrently and kind of cross-comparing the routing options to give us ideas. But we select our routes in advance a little bit. Sometimes we make it up too.
Yes, and
there are so the downside to using one of the built-in map apps on your device is, of course, that if you don't have cellular signal or Wi-Fi or have an internet connection while you're underway, the maps may not load, so you won't get your maps, which is kind of important when you're routing. So there are apps out there that download the maps to your device. Some of the popular ones are Copilot.
Magellan one.
We've been playing. Is it Magellan or Rand McNally?
Oh, Rand McNally.
I think
actually both. Well, the Magellan one I think we didn't like.
The Rand McNally, there's an RV specific one that has roads. They try to route you down RV friendly roads, so avoiding low clearances. You actually key in what the length of your RV is, your height, so that it can warn you away from places that you shouldn't be going.
The advantages of some of these that have the offline maps is that if you do make a wrong turn and it needs to recalculate and you're in a marginal or no cell area, Apple Maps or Google Maps will often just go out to lunch. Be like, can't get to the server, my brain is disconnected, I'm sorry, I cannot give you any more directions. Whereas a Magellan app or something like that, it might be using up to 3 or 4 gigs of space on your device. Some of them download the entire country, and so they're huge apps, 4 gigs, I've seen 6 gigs. Others let you pick where you're going to be and just download the maps for those states and stuff. But then the maps are all there, and it can recalculate on the fly whether or not you have a connection or not, whether or not your device is a Wi-Fi only device instead of a cellular device. There's a ton of navigation apps, particularly in iPhone. There's actually more and more happening on Android. But
right. So we've played around with Copilot and the Rad McNally RV one. The interfaces are they're not quite as spiffy as the native map apps that are on the devices, but they do work pretty well. Like one of my biggest complaints with the Rad McNally one is if you're routing to some place like in your contacts list, it doesn't actually link to your contacts list. So you have to still hand key in the address, and it's got a cumbersome interface just like those dedicated GPS devices where you're having to hunt and peck on an awkward keyboard to try to enter in your addresses. And that's one reason why we don't use a dedicated GPS device in our rig is
it's a pain interface.
We find the interface after being spoiled by iPads and Android devices and all these fancy things that are really intuitive and easy to use. The interfaces on the RV devices, or on the GPS devices, are a little antiquated for us high-tech people. But they are very valuable because they can be, because they are offline maps. You don't have to depend on a cellular signal to get them. But we really find that, spending, you can find the apps if you have an iPhone or an iPad or Android device or something like that. The apps are, when you look at the cost of one of the dedicated GPS devices, they're actually pretty affordable, and you can have multiple of them on the same device.
Right.
So that's one key piece of advice, especially if you're considering an iPad to be your GPS device. Make sure you buy one that is cellular equipped, so one that's marketed for AT&T, T-Mobile, Verizon, or
the cellular edition.
The cellular edition, because the chip.
Even if you never activate because the iPads are sold, you don't have to activate the plan. You can buy them, not activated. But the cellular ones, the cellular chip is the same chip as the GPS chip. So the Wi-Fi only devices do not have satellite GPS. They only have Wi-Fi triangulation, which can give you a pretty decent location fix when you're in a city because it can pick up on all the Wi-Fi towers nearby from various businesses. But when you're out on the road, a Wi-Fi iPad will have no clue where you are for the most part. So get the cellular model, even if you never activate the cellular. It's $130 extra, and it is worth it. It is definitely worth it.
Right, so that's one tip from us. See, navigation, being in tune with your, what is it? How far in advance do we set our intentions? Okay, so, I'm reading my my outline that I wrote.
Well, we still have to show our other tracking tool.
Well, setting intentions and route. That's pace, I don't know.
Okay. Well, this is another great navigation tool here. These numbers tell you whether to go north or south. So if the first digits on this one here is a 3 or below, particularly if there's a negative sign,
30 or below.
A 4 is pretty bad too. You go south, and if it's you go 3 or below, you go south, and if it's like an 8 or a 9 or a 10, go north. It really works. This is like the RVer's simple compass, north south.
All right. So another thing is how far in advance do we set our intentions in our routing? We don't like to pre-plan our travels too far in advance because we like to allow for serendipity to intervene and take us to amazing experiences. So we try to limit the number of things we pre-plan. So for many, many years, we've had Burning Man as a flag kind of on our calendar every single year. And we found that year after year after year, we would be kind of doing the same route. We'd be in Florida for the winter with family, and then we'd be doing a cross-country repositioning over the summer to get to northern Nevada. And always going through Utah and Colorado, which are just spectacularly gorgeous states.
But going through it too quickly.
Way too quickly.
Being rushed. Yes.
So we actually took 2 years off of Burning Man for the last 2 years so that we could try other things, and also family priorities took over for us. So we like to not have too many things pre-planned, but sometimes things make sense to pre-plan. Like the Lighthouse hosting gig that we did earlier this year. That's something that just really spoke to us, so we pre-planned it. And we ended up breaking down on the way. And
had to re-replan
then had to reschedule it. Anyway, so we're not really good at sticking to plans even when we make them. Next year, we have set intentions to host again at the Lighthouse for September and October. So we're already looking at getting to Florida and coming back across country. But we are, on our way to Cedar Key, Florida right now for a bit of a nomadic meetup with about 10 or 15 other RVing friends. We're really excited to get there. And so we're kind of on a cross-country repositioning because we finished the Lighthouse gig in October. We've been working our way south and across the country. We're broadcasting this from Austin, Texas right now, and on our way to Florida, where we'll be for 2 months. And we've actually had that plan in place. We made that decision over the summer that we wanted to be back in Cedar Key
this winter. Yes.
For this winter. So we listen to our hearts when it makes sense to make plans and when it doesn't.
So that's the big plan, the big picture plans. There's the little picture plans of, like, okay, how am I going to get from here to there?
Right. And so I kind of, the metaphor that I've used to describe it to people is it's kind of like a hurricane tracking map. When the hurricane is forming out over the ocean about, a week in advance, the track is a cone of where it might be going and might be landing on shore and the tracks it might take. And some tracks might actually take it going back out. Nomads are kind of like that, at least in our experience. And as you get closer and the storm, it gets firmer and it makes it doesn't make plans, but whatever. Then the track narrows in and you get more projections and a day out and things like that. And things can still change as it gets closer. And nomadic travel is kind of like that. So we kind of find that that's what we follow, is we give people a general projection of where we're going to be going. And it's like, we're going to Oregon next September, but anything between now and then is kind of like this. And as a week in advance, we can probably give you more of an indication.
Yes. Yeah, we have no idea how we're getting from Florida to Oregon. It could be anything.
We don't know what adventures will happen after Cedar Key and how we'll get back to Oregon.
Maybe by way of Spain. Yeah, you never know.
Yeah, it's a possibility. That's an interesting one. Anyway, next topic, we'll move on, is picking our pace of travel. So that's something that varies a lot for us is, when you're not retired, you're probably working on the road, so you have to balance in some work hours.
And some cat time. And
if you have pets, obviously the pets have their demands as well. You also, you probably have life, friends you want to meet up with on your travels, how much the people you want to meet up with. You might have business meetings along the way, social people that you meet up with. You might, be meeting up with friends and other nomadic friends in parks across the country as you travel. There's also things like, you want to have time for making healthy meals. If you're cooking at home, you can't eat out all the time. Well, you can, but it's not exactly sustainable financially and for the waistline.
So
you have to do chores, laundry, make the bed. It's not vacation.
So there's a lot of potential paces, and you've got to find the pace that works for you. And it will change over time. Because we know so many RVers that start off and they're have that burst of energy. Their first year, their pace is 5 times faster than it'll be 3 or 4 years down the road.
Right. So our first year on the road, we would move around about every 2 or 3 days.
And we would, not even think twice about driving 300 miles a spot sometimes.
And now we really have to twist our arm to drive 300 miles in a day.
We're kind of like, our next drive is 45 miles. That's a nice, reasonable, good day's drive there, and I wish we could do that sort of pace every time.
Yeah, and in an ideal world, I think we would like it so that we drove less than 100 miles a day.
And we'd spend
2 or 3 weeks,
days,
or at least a week or so in between.
Moves.
But it changes a lot for us. So we've been on a cross-country repositioning. We left, let's say, Desert Hot Springs. When did we leave Desert Hot Springs?
No, we left Sacramento right after Halloween.
Right, so just right at the beginning of November, we left Sacramento with a goal. We're getting to Cedar Key on December 20th is when our arrival date is set for. And we wanted to stop in Austin for Thanksgiving with family. We wanted some time here. We wanted it to be chill time and have time to connect with family and people here in Austin. And we are hosting a meetup tomorrow. If you're in the Austin area, be sure to contact us offline. We'll get you the details on that. And so we kind of had to plan a pace in between. And now we could go and travel 30 miles a day and be moving every single day and finding a campground every single night. Or we could pick spots to stay.
We could break it up into bursts of longer drives and then longer stays, which is actually very pleasant to do. Some of the rules the rules of thumb that we try to go for, something we came up with early on in our travel was the 2-night rule. Which was...
And you'll see this mentioned sometimes in RV groups as the 2-2-2 rule.
Yes. So our original incarnation of the 2-night rule was that we'd like to. You get so much more productive time if you're not trying to just cram your life into the end of a driving day. So you'd get someplace, and anytime you stopped long enough to shuffle the interior around and make it home, you stay at least 2 nights. You don't just do it overnight and hit the road again.
Yeah, regardless of how simplistic you've gotten your routine down of packing up and setting up your camp, it's time, it's effort, and it's mental agility. And driving is, and routing and finding your next destination and making reservations if you need to, or seeking out what your next campground is going to be. That's all mental energy, and sometimes it's just nice to not think about that stuff.
It's nice to have a day off from driving, and I'd rather do longer driving days with days off in between than continuous. Although sometimes when you're really making miles, it's just let's blow them out. We're going to only stop at Walmart or a rest area overnight. Get 8 hours of sleep and get back on the road. I mean, that's another good pace. Sometimes for maybe a little bit at a time, but nice to break those bursts up with at least 2 nights, if not 3 or 4 nights per stop, for real stop.
Right. So we mix it up. We mix up our pace. It depends a lot on our work schedule. If we're on a project, we're going to make time. We're going to try to get, like we are on a work project right now, that we need to be still for several days at a time and focus and get work done. And then we'll then take our days off, and we're trading that with doing 250 to 300 mile driving days to get to our next destination and stop for 3 or 4 days, so we have the time to actually work and focus. Mm-hmm. And that's working for us right now. Other times, we would prefer shorter driving days. Okay. And so
what is the 2-2-2 rule?
So the 2-2 rule that you'll see on the forums is you drive less than 200 miles a day, you stay 2 nights, and you're in by 2 p.m. And their in by 2 p.m. rule is so you have time to actually explore your area. So if you're getting into a campground and you're paying for a spot, or you've taken the energy to find that awesome boondocking spot or whatever, that you actually have time to go out for a hike and enjoy the sunset and and everything else.
Your night is much more resting if you can end the driving day and
with a glass of wine.
Well, with a glass of wine for sure. But if you have a chance to exhale and breathe before you have to go into the evening chores of gotta make dinner, gotta get and by the time if you get in someplace right as the sun is setting, and you're setting up camp with trying to get the food together, with trying to handle a few other logistics, and by the time you even realize where you're at, it's 9 or 10 o'clock at night, and if you've just gotten in by 2 p.m., yeah. Right. You'd be relaxed by then.
Right. So let's go on to number 3, if you can get the screensaver up. There we go. Selecting campgrounds. So that's the next option. If you follow our Facebook page and our travelog posts, we try to always post pictures of what our campsites are, and we like to be in the perfect spot for us at the time, whether that's a great view, a private site, full hookups, great Wi-Fi, great internet connectivity, being near people that we want to be visiting.
Walking distance to stuff.
Walking distance to cool stuff. That all those factors can all change. Sometimes we're willing to put up with a closer packed RV park to be within close distance to the place that we're visiting. So we're always looking for the perfect campground for us. We're not just going to take necessarily the cheapest option. So there are lots of apps out there now that allow you to look for campground options. That All Stays app that we were talking about earlier, they have a lot of campgrounds and overnight options built in. They have been building out that database really nicely. So the All Stays app has become a go-to source for us.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Another one that we use when we're trying to make miles and just looking for a place to charge and dump the tanks, and we're not necessarily going to stay someplace for a longer period of time. We really love the Passport America, because commercial parks, full hookup sites, that way, normally we prefer state parks and being out in the woods and everything else, but if we're looking for full hookups and need to literally recharge and dump, Passport America lets us stay at commercial parks for half price. So
some commercial, not all commercial.
Yes,
they have a network of parks, right. And they're half off, and there might be some blockout dates and only good for 2 or 3 nights. But that's great for when we're in transition and making miles. It gives us a place to stop off, dump the tanks, recharge the batteries. Sometimes they have hot tubs or laundry facilities or other things that we can make use of. So when we do commercial parks for just a couple nights, the Passport America, we will route by that, and they have a great app for finding their campgrounds. We do also, there's another one that we like is RV Parking. They have a free app, and they have a great website, rvparking.com, and it is a review site. They have a pretty decent database of about, I think they're up to 19,000 parks that they list now, and they give a lot of information on it, and we leave our reviews there.
You got to mention the other one.
And then the one that's been around a lot longer is rvparkreviews.com. It's they have a lot more reviews, a lot more active reviewer base. We find their user interface to be a little bit more on the clunky side, and they don't have a mobile app.
And they don't really. They have a lot of reviews, but a lot of the reviews make it very hard to figure out what are the reviews from somebody who is like me or like us.
Right. We like the RV Parking because you have a bit of a user profile, and we can find people that appreciate the same sorts of things we do. So we're not looking at reviews necessarily from a vacationer who's looking for the closest spot to Disney World.
Right.
We're getting reviews from people who are looking for good Wi-Fi and cellular signal.
We're not big traditional fifth-wheeler types and stuff. And actually, some of the reviews, I've seen negative reviews like, this park is awful, there's train tracks and there are trains going by nonstop. And I'm like, trains, I love trains, sound of trains at night. Oh, that's a park that gets 2 bonus stars for me. Right. So you got to actually read the reviews sometimes, not just look at the ratings.
So those are the sites that we usually use to find the campgrounds. We've also found just going on the forums and just seeing where other people are staying, and you'll get some ideas, reading other people's blogs.
Love first-hand recommendations.
First-hand recommendations are the best. So reading blogs, that's one reason we share wherever we're staying at and try to give an honest assessment of what we liked and didn't like about a park. Because we know other people, they'll go to those parks because we were there. Mm-hmm. And we go to other parks because other people were there. We found on this last repositioning from since Desert Hot Springs, we've pretty much been putting our route out on Facebook and taking recommendations from friends.
Great.
And we have been it's just been fantastic. Mm-hmm. So we've been enjoying some great campgrounds that way. Once we find a campground, especially if it's one we're going to be at for a bit of time, and if they do require that we select our spot in advance, I will pull up the campground on Google satellite maps and go in and look at what the campsites look like from an aerial view. If there's a street view as well, that helps as well, and just get a nice sense of what's around it. We like privacy. We like to be able to leave one side of the RV's windows open so that we're looking out onto trees or something and not directly onto another person's RV. So we're looking for things like that when we're picking our campgrounds and what our views might be like. There is another site that came out. I think it's campsiteviews.com.
Okay. Did they actually ever get anything submitted?
Well, they're sending a team of people out and taking photos of campgrounds so that you can actually see what the views are at individual sites. So that's another resource. We haven't used that one too much, but I've seen other people mention that one. Mm-hmm. And the other question that we get a lot when it comes to campgrounds is when do we make reservations? How far in advance? And do you need to make reservations? So
more often than not, particularly if you're aiming to get in by 2 p.m., you can get away without reservations.
And sometimes. So we'll look at over weekends in public campgrounds. Make reservations. It's always worthwhile. Because
in the season.
In their season, because a lot of state parks, county parks, things that are pretty, things that the locals might be going to as their weekend retreat, those are going to be filled up, especially if they have online reservations, so like Reserve America or any of the other online reservation systems. Those tend to get filled up in advance. So we do recommend if you want to be there over a weekend, make reservations, but that's not always true. We have been able to score some campsites.
Well, and oftentimes, actually, if they do take reservations, they have online availability. You can look and see this past week and the weeks leading up to where you've been, are they filling up? And if they're not filling up, then you don't really need to worry about it. Then you don't have to feel constrained. Because the one thing, we've been burned many times of like, we need to make a reservation, and then suddenly that's a point on the map that if our schedule changes or our driving pace changes or we want to go someplace else, now we've got a constraint. And then sometimes we get there, we made a reservation, and we made 4 days reservation for a place that we get there and we just don't even like at all. And sometimes we have to drive and walk away from a reservation.
Yeah, we have done that. Yeah. And we've also encountered where something came up. We wanted to stay an extra day, and we didn't feel we had that flexibility to do that. So But when we do make reservations is when there is something that we want to attend. So maybe it's a conference. This time we did make this reservation here in Austin. We made that over the summer once the plans for our family to converge in Austin came together. We knew we wanted to be here. We wanted to, in Thanksgiving, we wanted to make sure we had a spot. So we did make a reservation. We made one for Cedar Key because we know that we overblogged with pretty sunset pictures, and we knew it was going to fill up this year. And sure enough, it's pretty full this winter. So we have our spot pre-reserved. So it makes sense sometimes to make a reservation, especially if there's somewhere you need to be for a reason, and then it does make sense to make this reservation. But always check for what the cancellation policy is. Some of them will no cancellation, like our Cedar Key one. We had to cancel last year. We had a rain check. They can only give us a rain check.
Yeah, you get to apply some of that credit towards this year's stay. One interesting tip for a lot of public campgrounds and stuff that we've uncovered is ones that fill up and take reservations as well often have an overflow area, so that if you're there, if you show up, you'll get a place. But if you call and say, do you have any space, they'll be like, no, we're full. So that's an actual interesting thing that plays out in many places.
Yes. Also, another tip on public campgrounds, if you first check them online, like on Reserve America, and they're full up, don't take that as an automatic no, they're full, because a lot of people will reserve those sites in advance, and the cancellation fees are so minimal that they hold those reservations until their plans change, and there's a lot of last-minute cancellations that you can snag. Once they cancel them, they immediately become available on Reserve America, and you can go in and snag those. So
we actually know a family that's
the Molly-Mish family.
They spent the winter high season in the Florida Keys, the hot spot for all the snowbirds want to be. They spent a big chunk of the winter down there without any reservations, just hopping,
taking the last minute reservations. So
they had to move every couple of days just because they're taking these little dibs and dabs. But it worked for them. They just planned around that and got to be someplace where you normally have to make reservations 6 months in advance.
Right. So they're getting waterfront spots. It was awesome. All right. So we're wrapping up on what we had prepared to talk about. If you have questions that you have for us, it can be about anything.
Or if you have any personal tips of your own that you'd like to share that you'd like to know.
But if you have questions for us, it can be about the topic of routing and campgrounds or anything about nomadic life. Please go ahead and start queuing those up in the chat screen. If you've not found it yet, in the upper right-hand corner of Ustream, there's a chat link, and that is the chat area where you can type in your questions to us, and they will show up here on our iPad. There was someone asked, what was the site that had video reviews of the campgrounds? I don't know of anyone that has video reviews. They're usually text reviews. So you're asking also about the censored. Ustream does not allow you to put links in your messages. So no.
Chat,
so
if
no
you
link.
actually are a registered user, can you put a link, or is it?
I think I've got it turned off, and
Okay.
I have to go over there to turn it off. So no links, please. That you'll get censored.
Okay. Once the censored.
Yes. Okay. So we're starting to get some questions. Anything to watch out as a solo woman with a dog? Chris traveled solo as a male before he met me.
And we've actually met more solo women.
There's a lot of
solo
women.
Solo males, though.
I would definitely connect in with the solo women on the road. The Interstellar Orchid is a great central point. There's a whole bunch. If you actually go to our links list on our blog, I have a whole tab of solo folks. Go connect with them and get their tips on that, because especially from the women on there, that's not something that I have a lot of expertise to share with you.
But mostly when we run across solo women, they tend to love it and say that it has been much less of an issue than they ever imagined going into it.
All right. Someone has asked, what is the best Wi-Fi booster and best cell phone boosters? We actually have an article on that on the blog right now. Go to Where Are the LTE Boosters?
Yes.
That if you go to technomadia.com/internet, you'll get everything that we've written about mobile internet. That is, we've actually done hour-long chats on that. We've written a book on it, and we have hours and hours of reading that you can access from there. And we have our recommendations for the boosters on there. Unfortunately, the boosting market is a little weird right now because we're in between FCC regulations, so the new stuff hasn't been released yet. All the good stuff for LTE, and the old stuff doesn't quite meet the needs yet. So we really don't have a solid recommendation for boosters right now because of that.
Well, we have a couple recommendations, but it depends on check out that article. It explains the current state of boosting.
Right.
Was that one there?
So how often do you stay at camps versus boondock? Okay, so let's talk about boondocking. Here's Kiki. Someone was asking about Kiki. Hey, here's Kiki.
Yay. Hey. Wave your paw. Yes.
Okay. So
boondocking, it's on our first year on the road, we actually did it quite a bit. My very first date with Cherie was I took her stealth boondocking on Treasure Island in the middle of San Francisco Bay. And so that tiny little trailer could get away with being almost anywhere and being under the radar. We did some out in the deep wilderness and everything else. In the last 2.5 years since we've got the bus, we haven't had much opportunity to boondock, and the bus isn't very fully configured for boondocking at the moment either. We haven't done the solar project yet, and we've been spending a big chunk of our time on the East Coast and in Florida in particular, where there's not a lot of boondocking. It's when it works, it works. When it doesn't, it doesn't. It's we know some people who are like driven boondockers, and it is a core piece of what they do to travel. For us, when it works, it's great. We've had some amazing, incredible boondocking experiences. And other times we're not hesitant. We're not trying to avoid RV parks at all costs. Although we are trying to avoid RV parking lots at all costs, though. The ones where we have our neighbor right out our window does not work for us.
So we like pretty campgrounds.
Yes.
And I don't mind. We don't mind paying. We budget for it. We are working on the road, so we budget for doing campgrounds. But there's amazing boondocking experience out there. We are looking forward to getting the solar put on the bus. We're waiting out technology right now, and instead of proceeding with that this year, so that we have more options for that. Yeah. But no, we probably stay in campgrounds 95% of the time right now. Well, we do some driveway surfing with friends.
Driveway surfing, or
staying in rest areas,
or staying in diesel parking lot, diesel shop lots in Billings. That's sort of a boondocking experience. Now, let's see, do electric heaters do better than gas in order to cut down on propane and for costs? Well, electric heaters don't use any propane at all, as far as I know.
So you definitely can cut down on your propane costs. You cut down a lot of propane. So using electric versus propane, so as you might know, we are completely propane-free in here. It was an unsafe system that was installed in our bus. We have an article on that on going propane-free. So we are right now dependent on electric space heaters, just because we haven't yet put in our hydronic system. But if you are staying someplace where you are paying a flat rate
for electricity,
no, not just for electricity. If your campground feed includes electricity, obviously that's going to make better sense. Right. I have not done a cost analysis between if you're paying electric versus propane. I think it's going to vary a lot on what the weather's like. And also what the cost per kilowatt hour.
And the cost for propane. Because if you're buying bulk propane, and people who camp out in the winter, you're going to get much more efficient energy out of gas heat. And a lot of places, a lot of campers who set up for like winter season in a ski resort town, they'll have a big giant propane tank set up external to their RV, and that will be their bulk of their furnace. And then you could actually sign up for residential delivery and get your propane delivered at a fraction of what it costs when you go and refill and exchange cylinders. So you've got a lot of things to weigh and balance, trying to come up with your I guess heating budget. Right. So yeah, you have to do an analysis on that. We've seen propane rates anywhere from like $2.50 a gallon to I don't know. We don't even track it anymore. Yeah, we haven't had propane in quite a while, which is great. Can you speak boondocking in a Class A long term? Long term. Define long term. I mean, we know plenty of urban boondockers, and some of them in Class A's. Urban boondocking Class A's tend to stick out and say RV. So the people we know who are more dedicated urban boondockers do smaller units and Class C's that are a little bit more maneuverable if they're going to go in RV. The bigger the Class A, the more you kind of stick out in it and seem out of place in an urban area. For long term, particularly if you're just doing a night or two, a lot of people can get away with it. Yeah, we've been able to urban camp, stealth camp, in all of our setups over the years for a few nights at a time.
We don't like to do it very often, though, because we don't like the stealth part. We don't like to have to keep our windows closed and not move around inside the rig and worried about the sound we're generating, worrying about the squeakiness and not being able to have adult fun inside the RV. And, Kiki likes to be outside and hunt, and I don't want to have to keep her confined inside. She goes crazy. So we don't do a lot of urban boondocking just because it's not fun for us.
For our particular style.
Yeah, but a lot of people do it for their own reasons. Maybe they get work in the area or whatnot. Okay.
How do you find a good laundromat? Is there an app for that? Called Yelp?
Yes, Yelp is a fantastic app for finding. We use that to get reviews on laundromats, restaurants, dentists, haircut places.
And for the most part, we haven't really run across too many bad laundromats.
Yeah, if you look in the door and it looks icky, don't go in.
Yeah, but laundromats have generally been really good experiences. You get all your laundry done no matter how much you have, so we let it pile up into a mountain, and then we go into a laundromat and we're in and out in an hour, and everything is washed and dried. I can spend an hour anywhere.
So sometimes will we be having more interviews with folks who are on the road full time and how they make it work on a small income stream like Social Security and a bit of savings? So we do have an ongoing series called Ramblings, and it's our interview series with our friends we've met on the road who are also full-timers. I do have...
And there's people of all sorts there making it work in all different ways, from families to different levels of income to everything. So the Ramblings has got a lot of diversity. It's a lot of diversity.
We're not focusing on any one demographic. We are focusing, however, on people who are working on the road in some way and not just pure retired. We try to keep our,
focus where?
Well, yeah, we try to keep some focus. But yeah, we do have about half a dozen other ones recorded that I just need to find the time to sit down and edit. Those interviews, by the way, we have about 8 to 12 hours a piece in those interviews for those little 6 to 8 minute clips.
Video editing is a lot of work. It is a
lot of work, and it takes a lot of bandwidth to get them up. And sometimes it's not encouraging to do them because we get so little feedback on them. So when we post them, no one comments, no one gives us feedback that they're even enjoying them.
So if there are some of those videos and interviews and stuff that you have enjoyed, go back to them and post comments on them. Let them know, hey, I really like this. I want to see more of this. The comments are your best way to say we want more of something.
Right. So we post what we like to post, and I like to post things that get us interaction with people and that people appreciate and let us know they're appreciating. So we thank you for that if you do become an active engaging on the blog. We've already answered about city boondocking.
Yes, we did it with the Oliver.
Do you have a directory of these types of sites you have visited and recommended? Yes, we have a travelogue on the blog that has documented every place we've ever stayed. And I leave a campground review on rvparking.com for every campsite we've ever been to. So we're no secrets there. We'll be living out of a trailer starting on January 10th. Will my wife freak out due to the lack of space in a small bathroom? That's up to your wife, not your space.
I invited her to live into the tab with me, and there wasn't a bathroom, and she didn't freak out. So I was actually...
It is all dependent on your personality, your adaptability, and how much you want this lifestyle. If your partner is not on board with it, they're probably not...
They'll find a reason to freak out. They
will freak out. Be in tune on what you're doing on this, and talk it out, pick it together, plan it together.
And if she says she doesn't mind, then don't, put your doubts aside. Give her a chance. The last thing I expected my first year on the road, living in a 16-foot tiny little box with no bathroom, no air conditioning, no refrigeration, but it had solar and wireless internet, so what else do you need?
Right.
I did not expect to ever run across somebody who'd be like, hell yes, I'll move in with you, and I'll sell my house even. And then I run across her. So, people can surprise you at how adaptable they might be.
Right. So, if you have concerns, find ways to spend time in an RV and get a realistic before you hit the road full time. Research it. There's no such thing as too much research when it comes to it.
Atmospheric air to water for RVs. Yes, I actually researched because air conditioners put out a lot of condensation, and so when I redid the air conditioner in the bus this summer, I was thinking like, hey, can I actually plumb this into our freshwater tank? So in a humid environment, running the air conditioner fills our water tank, and I spent an evening researching what's involved with that and is it healthy and safe. And the end verdict is that no, it is not. Lots of little spores and mold and various other bad things accumulate on the fins, and so the water that's coming off is, actually, you probably heard of Legionnaire's disease. That's kind of where Legionnaire's disease was originally came from and spread with air conditioning systems in ductwork and such. There's bad germs that happen when you're doing that, and then the water needs to be very, very filtered to be safe. So it turns out it's not a really good idea. But if somebody has done further research and has found a way to make it work, I don't know about it.
All right. Scroll on up here. Have you ever been caught in a local disaster storm? What do you have for emergencies? We do track the weather. We have why don't you get our weather alert radio over here? We do have apps on our iPhones. There's one called Weather Radio that gives us alerts when things have been issued in our area.
We have a little weather
and we also
radio.
have one here that also works as a two-way radio for communication.
Not two-way.
Is that? I thought it was.
No.
Oh.
No, there was other models that we got this really cheap when we were in
Walmart.
And what was our?
Oh right, yeah. So we did actually get caught in a tornado warning thing that passed through when we were in St. Louis. We happened to be street camped, actually driveway surfing with his parents, and we took retreat to their basement. We do try to keep aware of the weather, and the best we can if we can route around. We just got caught in we had to stay ahead of a snowstorm, ice storm coming in when we're coming into Austin.
Yeah, so we actually had to. That was one thing that really affected our pace of travel coming towards Austin. Was like there's this sudden Arctic blast of air coming down, and the forecast is ice storms, quarter-inch, half inches of ice on the roads, all this like horrible, scary stuff that if we hunkered down where we were a week and a half ago, we might have been pinned there for 3 or 4 days, letting the storm get past us, and it was going to get well below freezing, and we were not.
It's like getting
really,
down to 21. It was.
Yeah. So it was going to get to the point that we're going to have to suddenly rush, winterize, figure out how to get to winterize all our plumbing, and we only have an electric space heater. It's not going to be able to keep up once we get that cold for that long of time. So we're like, okay, we can hunker down and let the storm go over us, but then we're going to have a deep freeze situation. Or we actually decided to push through and have some really long driving days, staying just ahead of the storm. We drove through freezing rain and a little bit of sleet, but we stayed ahead of the freeze line, so we never had to drive on frozen roads. But that was like, okay, we're getting up early and just watching the forecast all day. We know that if worst comes to worst, we'll just pull over and wait it out. But we made it to Austin just ahead of that big cold blast, which was great. So we avoided having anything freeze.
Right. But we do keep aware of the weather. Like I said, we have the apps on the phones that give us alerts. The weather radio and the Red Crosses are pretty good. And we also have a physical weather radio. And we proactively check the weather before we hit the road and to see what's coming up, and we do plan our routing around that as well. So, and if something is issued, you do your best to deal with it.
Oh, and I have to say the weather radio so far is actually
crap. It's been useless.
The apps on the iPhone, the weather radio apps that automatically pop up alerts on your phone.
And they
much better than that
right,
one.
and they automatically adjust to where your location is. So you don't have to remember. With these stupid radios, you have to go in and tell it,
put in a code to say where you're at, so it knows what to trigger on. It can scan for the local channels. So I wouldn't mind finding a better weather radio. That little cheapy Walmart one we bought really hasn't proven to be worth much. But having a way to tune into weather alerts in real time is great.
Right. Okay, solar. Someone's asking about solar again. We actually already addressed that earlier in the chat. We do not yet have solar on this bus. It is a pending project, and we are waiting for technology.
The biggest challenge with our bus is it has a curved roof, and we don't want to cover our curved roof with flat panels. That will take away a lot of the look of our awesome vintage curvy bus. So we have plans to do flat panels that will adhere to the roof and keep the curves, but we're taking our time to do it right.
And we are in touch with several companies that we are researching with and who we're working
on
with,
doing those kind of panels.
And we have our fingers on lots of prototypes that are in testing, and we're waiting for the right time.
Yep.
We're in no rush. Let's see. Do you
waste
think
vegetable oil for the bus?
Oh, you're skipping. You're
I
skipping.
am.
Yes. Can you think of living in an 800 square foot apartment ever again. I've never lived in an 800 square foot apartment, so that's completely hypothetical.
I probably have. Sure, I'd love to see us go spend some time getting an apartment in the south of France or Thailand or something. Park the bus for a while.
All about the location. We're nomads at heart. We'll probably always have some sort of travel or no ties to permanent location for quite a while. We do look to other ways of being nomadic other than having wheels under our feet, whether it's sails or motors or water or like we did when we went over and lived in the Virgin Islands.
Basically an apartment.
Yeah, we lived in an apartment over there for 5 months. We like to mix it up and keep variety and keep options open. Have you ever considered adding WVO system for fuel?
With vegetable oil. Vegetable oil, it's a lot of work. If you want that to be your passion, we know some people who do it, and you can. If that becomes part of something that you enjoy, part of your adventure is tracking down your veggie oil and going through the process and converting it, and then you get a lot of joy out of covering miles with fuel that's costing you a penny or two per gallon. Awesome. We know people who make that work. It is a lot of work. You can't just kind of half do it. It has to become central to what you do. Your life revolves around seeking out fuel.
Our lives already revolve enough around seeking out bandwidth. We can afford our fuel. It's fine.
We keep our miles down, but that's not a goal for us. We do actually the last few truck stops we've been at, they've had 20% mixed biodiesel, and we've used biodiesel in our bus. But we're not going to do the conversion on this bus to burn straight veggie oil. It just doesn't really fit where we're at.
Right. We know people who do it, and they love it. Let's see. Someone's asking about questions that have been asked before in this chat about apps that we use and boondocking. Those have both been covered before. Just go back.
Apps on the weather alerts. Weather Alert Radio app.
Weather Alert Radio, and then also another question about how often do we boondock, which we just talked about for 5 minutes. Just go watch the archive of this video when we're done, and you can get the answers to those questions. My wife thinks we do not need to tow a car. How important have you found it to be? Absolutely essential.
Well, we did a while without it.
When we first got the bus 2.5 years ago, we did 6 months without a tow vehicle just to see what it was like. Mm-hmm. And if you can find RV parks that are near public transit or near where you need to be, where you can walk, if you can borrow cars along the way from friends, keep the option open for renting cars every so often.
Right.
It's workable.
I encourage somebody who's hitting the road to give it a try. Even it's that way when you get a car, you can decide what you want and what you need, and you don't need to necessarily start out that way. It'll make you appreciate the car all that much more too. But having some sort of autonomous, dry way to get around is very useful.
Right. So the things that kind of pushed us over was. What happens if one of us has a medical emergency and we need to quickly we don't want to have to worry about packing up the RV and hooking everything. It gives us a quicker way without having to call an ambulance. What if Kiki, she is accident prone sometimes, we need to get her to a vet quickly. The emergency things, I was feeling too stuck having just the bus. I was feeling too vulnerable. Right. So it's given us a great deal of freedom. When my dad was ill, it gave me a sense of freedom that when we were out traveling about, that if something changed in his condition, I could hop in our car, which we could tow a Mini Cooper, and get back to him quickly. We can both go our separate ways, have separate adventures for a short bit of time.
And so when you're traveling frequently, you can get away without a tow a lot easier than if you're putting down routes for a month at a time. A month at a time without a vehicle is probably not so doable in most places.
Unless you're in some place with great public transit.
But even then, most RV parks aren't necessarily going to be there.
Unless you're in San Francisco. So, you try it,
but plan on having that you'll revisit that decision, and it definitely does up your skills to spend some time without it too. It forces you to think through certain things.
And we were extremely thankful when the bus broke down over the summer. Yes. We broke down in between two cities. We were 20 miles from cell phone signal. So having our little shuttlecraft to go back 20 miles to the nearest town to be able to coordinate help was
very useful.
Yeah. So We're very thankful that we were maintaining 2 engines
Yes.
and towing it around, and we get a lot of value. Like, here, where we're parked right now, we're 8 miles from where my brother's at. It would be a pain in the butt to be trying to go over to spending time with family right now without having our vehicle.
And on the other hand, though, if we were still living without a tow, this would be a perfect time to rent a car for a week.
Right.
And if you factor in the costs, car rentals, particularly if you're just doing like the weekend rentals or you do some of the special races and you just get a car when you need it, you might be surprised at how little that will cost you over the course of a year as compared to owning a tow. So keep that in mind.
But you can't rent a vehicle easily when you're stuck.
Exactly.
Sometimes.
Yeah,
so,
sometimes.
It's so we've now been chatting for about an hour. I'm looking to see if we've got any other questions on here. A lot of thank yous. Thank you so much for all the thank yous. We love the appreciation. If you have any other questions, this is last call for questions for us addressed this evening.
If not, we will see you next time.
We're going to give you a couple seconds here to type in any last-minute questions.
And shuttlecraft, yes.
Yes, we love our shuttlecraft.
Okay, well, I think that does it. This is basically 1 hour exactly. So
fantastic. We'll cut it off here. If you want to continue, I'll head over to my computer and I'll still be in the chat screen. I can chat with you for a couple more minutes. If you have any more questions, go ahead and queue them up. But we are going to say good evening to you and thank you for joining us. And we hope that you have a joyous and blessed holiday season this winter. Stay warm and appreciate those you love.
And see you next time. See you out there.
Yes, and good evening.
Good night.